For 2 years, every Friday night was the same. I'd pull my car up to the big old house at the end of Maple Street, the Johnson house. And every time I'd see Mrs. Johnson in the kitchen window, waving with that warm, kind smile of hers. The whole family was like that, always happy, always welcoming. Their order was always the same, too. One large pepperoni, one supreme, and an order of cheesy breadsticks. It was a comforting rhythm, a small bright spot in my week. Then, one Friday, things changed. The kitchen window was empty. No wave, no smile. I figured maybe she was just busy. But the next week it was the same. And the week after that, the kids who used to run to the door with their dad started hanging back. Their usual cheerful chatter was replaced by a heavy quiet. I'd catch their eyes and they looked different, sad, scared, even. It was a subtle shift, but it felt like the whole atmosphere of the house had gone from warm sunshine to a cold, creeping shadow. The routine was broken. The energy I'd come to associate with that house was gone. I tried to brush it off. People have bad weeks, right? Families go through things. But something about the silence, about the look in those kids' eyes, it just stuck with me. It was like a little splinter in my mind that I couldn't quite get out. I'd drive away from their house each Friday feeling a growing sense of unease. A feeling that something was deeply wrong behind that familiar front door. Then came the Friday that I'll never forget. The call came in, but the order was all wrong. Just one plain cheese pizza, not the usual family feast. When I got to the house, Mr. Johnson opened the door, and it was like a wave of cold air hit me. The house behind him was dark, much darker than usual. The kids were there, huddled together in the dim hallway, and they looked absolutely terrified. They wouldn't even look at me. As Mr. Johnson fumbled for the cash, I glanced up at the second floor window. For just a split second, I saw a shadow move past the glass. It was quick, almost imaginary, but it sent a shiver straight down my spine. The air felt thick, heavy with unspoken secrets. I handed him the pizza and practically ran back to my car, my heart pounding in my chest. That was the last order I ever delivered to the Johnson family. The next Friday, the phone never rang. The week after that, silence. I kept telling myself it was nothing, that they had just moved or found a new pizza place. But I couldn't shake the image of those frightened kids and the shadowy figure in the window. Then, a few days later, I was scrolling through the local news on my phone during a break. A headline jumped out at me, bold and stark. Woman found deceased in local woods. My blood ran cold. I clicked on the article, and there was a picture. It was Mrs. Johnson, that kind, smiling woman from the kitchen window. All that time. 2 years of Friday nights. I had been delivering pizza to a family that was falling apart. A family hiding a terrible, dark secret. The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. Her disappearance from the window. The children's fear. The single cheese pizza, the shadow. I hadn't just been delivering food. I had been an unwitting visitor to the scene of a tragedy as it unfolded. Now, whenever my route takes me down Maple Street, I can't help but look at that empty, silent house. And sometimes, in the corner of my eye, I can still see her waving from the kitchen window. But it's not a friendly greeting anymore. It's a silent, desperate plea for help. A plea that I and everyone else completely missed. Thanks for watching. It's a chilling reminder to pay attention to the people around us. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe for more. Stay safe out there. The rain was coming down in sheets, that kind of relentless, end-of-the-world downpour that makes you question your life choices. Of course, it was my last delivery of the shift. The GPS was struggling, but the address was clear enough, 13 Ravenwood Lane. I'd been a delivery driver in this town for 5 years, and I'd never heard of it. The name alone sent a little shiver down my spine. But a job's a job, right? I finally found the street, tucked away behind an old industrial park. It wasn't really a lane, more like a dirt track swallowed by woods. The streetlights, the few that worked, flickered like dying fireflies, casting long, dancing shadows. And there it was, at the very end. The house wasn't just old. It felt ancient, almost completely hidden behind a curtain of overgrown, twisted trees. It looked like it had been abandoned for a century. I remember thinking, who orders pizza to a place like this? Taking a deep breath, I grabbed the pizza box and made a run for the porch. The wood groaned under my feet. Before I could even knock, the heavy oak door creaked open. A man stood there, silhouetted against a dim, flickering light. He was unnaturally pale, his eyes dark and sunken. He didn't say hello. He just whispered, his voice like dry leaves skittering across pavement. "Come in." Every instinct screamed at me to turn and run, but his gaze was compelling. It was like I didn't have a choice. The moment I stepped inside, the door swung shut behind me with a heavy thud that echoed through the house. The air was freezing, a damp cold that seeped right into my bones, and it smelled of dust, old paper, and something else. Something sweet and metallic. The only light came from dozens of candles, their flames dancing wildly as if caught in a breeze, though the air was perfectly still. The light flickered over shelves crammed with strange objects. Animal skulls, old glass bottles filled with dark liquids and weirdly shaped wooden carvings. It felt less like a home and more like a museum of the macabre. The pale man didn't say another word. He just beckoned with a long bony finger, leading me deeper into the house. My heart was pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. He stopped in front of a heavy, dark wood door at the end of a long hallway. It was different from the others. The frame was covered in intricately carved symbols, geometric shapes, and swirling lines I'd never seen before. He pulled a large, ornate iron key from his pocket, and with a deafening scrape and click, he unlocked it. He pushed the door open, revealing a pitch-black staircase leading down. He turned to me, his eyes seeming to glow in the darkness. "Downstairs," he commanded, his voice barely a whisper but carrying an undeniable weight. I felt like a puppet on a string, my feet moving down the creaking wooden steps against my will. The basement was even colder than the rest of the house. As my eyes adjusted, I could see that the walls were lined with shelves, just like upstairs, but these held jars, hundreds of them. Inside, floating in murky fluid, were things I couldn't and didn't want to identify. In the center of the room, on a stone pedestal, was a massive leather-bound book. It was open, its pages filled with the same strange symbols from the door. The man walked over to it, his fingers tracing the script. He began to read aloud. The language was guttural, harsh, and completely alien. As the strange words filled the basement, a sudden, powerful gust of wind ripped through the room, extinguishing every single candle in an instant. Plunged into absolute darkness and silence. I froze, and then I felt it. A cold, clammy hand clamped down on my shoulder. Another grabbed my arm. They weren't the man's hands. They were small, almost like a child's, but with an iron grip. Whispers erupted all around me, swirling in the dark, a chorus of voices speaking my name. "Michael, Michael," I screamed. A single light bulb flickered on overhead, buzzing erratically. The man was gone. The hands were gone. I was alone. But the book was still open on the pedestal, and as I stared, its thick yellowed pages began to turn, slowly, one by one, all on their own. I didn't wait to see what came next. I bolted. I scrambled up the stairs, burst through the front door, and ran faster than I've ever run in my life, not stopping until the last flickering light of Ravenwood Lane was gone. I never went back. I quit my job the next day, but some nights, when the wind howls just right, I can still hear them, the whispers, calling my name. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have a spooky experience you'd like to share, drop it in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more chilling dailies. Stay safe out there. Opening with a slightly anxious confessional tone. You know, I've delivered thousands of pizzas in my life. You see a lot of strange things, meet a lot of interesting people. But there's one delivery that still gives me chills whenever I think about it. It happened years ago when I was working in a part of town that, let's just say, you didn't want to be in after dark. The kind of place where streetlights were more of a suggestion than a rule. It was a slow Tuesday night, rain drizzling down, the whole city feeling gloomy. The phone rang, and we got an order. Nothing unusual at first, 2 large pepperoni pizzas, a couple of sodas. But the address, it was for a street we all knew. A street we actively avoided. My manager looked at the ticket, then at me, then at my coworker, Mike. He just shook his head. "Be careful," was all he said. Mike and I looked at each other. We both had that same gut feeling. Something was off. The address didn't seem to exist on our map, but it was on a street that definitely did. We decided to take it, but we weren't going unprepared. We each grabbed one of those heavy metal pipes we used to prop open the back door. We tucked them into our jackets, just in case. Felt dramatic at the time, but looking back, it was the smartest thing we did all night. Driving there was like entering another world. The farther we went, the more the city decayed. The houses were dilapidated, with boarded up windows and yards choked with weeds. The few streetlights that worked cast these long, distorted shadows that played tricks on your eyes. It was dead silent, except for the hum of our beat-up delivery car and the rain tapping on the roof. The atmosphere was so heavy you could feel it pressing in. We finally found the street. The house number from the order didn't exist. The numbers jumped from 112 to 120. There was number 116. We were standing in the middle of a dark, empty block, holding 2 pizzas and feeling like... But we had to be sure. We decided to knock on the doors of the houses nearby. Maybe they got the number wrong. We went to 112 first. Knock, knock, knock. After a long wait, an elderly woman peeked through a crack in the door, her eyes wide with suspicion. "Pizza?" "No, honey. Nobody here ordered pizza." She slammed the door shut before we could even ask another question. Okay. We crossed the street to 120. Same story. A guy answered, looked at us like we were crazy, and told us to get lost. We were standing in the cold, getting soaked, feeling more and more like we were in the middle of a prank. That's when we heard it. A sound from the darkness behind us. The distinct, unmistakable sound of footsteps. Not walking, but shuffling. Deliberate. Slow. Like someone was trying not to be heard. We both froze, our hearts pounding in our chests. I whispered, "Mike, did you hear that?" He just nodded, eyes fixed on the shadows between 2 abandoned houses. We slowly turned around. There was nothing. Absolutely nothing. Just the empty street, the flickering lights, and the pouring rain. But the feeling of being watched was overwhelming. It felt like a dozen pairs of eyes were on us from the darkness. The shuffling sound started again, this time closer. We didn't wait to see what it was. We just ran. We sprinted back to the car, fumbling with the keys, the pizzas practically flying out of our hands. We jumped in, locked the doors, and Mike slammed his foot on the gas. The tires screeched on the wet asphalt as we peeled out of there. I didn't look back, I just stared straight ahead, my heart trying to beat its way out of my chest. We didn't say a word the entire drive back to the shop. When we got back, we were pale, soaked, and shaken. We told our manager what happened. He listened, his face getting grimmer with every word. An hour later, the police scanner in the back office crackled to life. A call came in for a robbery. A delivery driver. He'd been lured to an empty lot and ambushed. The address they used for the fake order. It was on the exact same street we had just escaped from. The blood drained from my face. We weren't just the victims of a prank. We were the original targets. Those pizzas, that fake address. It was a trap. We were supposed to be the ones who got robbed, or worse. The only reason we were safe was because we brought those pipes. Because we looked like we weren't easy targets. Because we trusted our instincts and ran. To this day, I can't shake that memory. The decaying houses, the suffocating silence, and that sound in the dark. Sometimes late at night, I still wonder about those footsteps. Were they just the would-be robbers, hiding and waiting for the right moment? Or was it something else, drawn to that forgotten, decaying street, waiting in the shadows for Titalo else to arrive? I'm just glad I never stuck around to find out. Thanks for listening to my story. It's a heavy one, I know. If you have any stories like this, I'd love to read them in the comments. Stay safe out there, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more. See you next time.